provocation, stubbornness, not listening and not being listened to, tension, making decisions that you might regret later. These are all pressures that this cycle of the human design weather for June 30th to July 6th, 2025 will bring. Hello there. I'm Margot Fraser, your guide through the cosmic weather. As a certified human design professional and intuitive coach, I'm on a mission to help you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. In this podcast, Human Design, Whether or Not, we explore the conditioning influences of the planetary motions, the transit field. And this is just so that rather than you reacting and being pulled off track by these pressures, this awareness will enable you and empower you to navigate the cycle, staying true to your authentic nature and take advantage of opportunities when correct for you. Let's dive into the weather for this cycle. This cycle begins on June 30th at 7:39 p.m., going until July 6th at 5:14 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates that's starting July 1st at 1:39 a.m., going until July 6th at 11:14 p.m. Remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start looking at the sun earth positions because that's 70% of the conditioning field. This cycle, we're moving out of logic and into individuality. It brings this nature of wanting to bring through mutation, something new. It operates in a pulse of knowing and can be very empowering through that mutative process. Individuality also does not like to be interfered with. Don't interfere with me. So you may feel some of that this cycle. We have two gates in the root center again, and the root center is a motor and a pressure center, bringing its adrenalized drive. We're definitely going to have tension in the air as the sun is in the gate of provocation and the earth is in the trait of the fighter. So you might find that you and those around you are a little more feisty than usual this cycle. Okay, well, the sun has moved into gate 39, that trait of provocation, also called obstruction. Its keynote says the value of obstruction in provoking analysis, assessment, and reevaluation. When you provoke or are provoked, it can force you to look at another perspective. That's a type of obstruction that can cause you to reassess and reevaluate. This trait brings the energy to provoke the emotional spirit of another person. It's pointed at its electromagnetic in the solar plexus, emotional center, gate 55, which is the trait of the spirit, the emotional spirit, your passion. So in its high, it could provoke joy, passion, pleasure, love. It could be a place where someone says something when you're feeling down or you're in a bad mood that just makes you burst out laughing, or the reverse, or not, right? So you could be on a high and someone says something and you just get triggered down. It could also have you trying to get an emotional rise out of someone, and that could not go so well. It might piss them off, or someone could do that to you. It's a trait that could really bring out your inner button pusher. But there's no awareness here. It's simply the drive and the pressure to provoke the spirit. It's the energy that's saying, hey, where's your passion? Where's your spirit? What do you love? By the way, if you have this gate in your own design, those that generally react negatively to your provocation, you are a natural provocateur. Those that continue to react negatively to it are likely not for you. And you don't necessarily have to say anything to provoke the other. It's in the frequency of this energy. There's a perseverance that's built into this energy to seek out the spirit of the other, to persevere through the moods of that gate 55, which has high highs and low lows. So being able to persevere through those highs and those lows of the emotional spirit that 55 releases, yeah, that's something positive that this trait can really bring. Keep in mind that the 55 and the emotional center operates in the ups and downs of a spike wave. So it can be quite even and then go way up or go way down. Therefore, what might seem to be the right spirit to provoke one day might not be on another day. This is a trait that looks for love and teases to see if it can provoke that spirit in the high form. If someone's telling an individual that carries the 39 in their design not to provoke, it's in their design. That's like telling the sun not to shine. All individual traits can drop into melancholy. And here the melancholy is not knowing who to provoke. The Earths moved into gate 38, the gate of the fighter or oppositions. They sit opposite each other in the root center. Its keynote says the ability to preserve individual integrity through opposition to detrimental forces. Persevering individual integrity means staying aligned to what's of value to you as an individual, what's keeping you on your purpose path, regardless of the forces of others that might be trying to pull you out of that. This trait of the fighter brings the energy to fight for purpose in life and to see that life has value beyond just survival as an individual. It can help overcome the fear of purposelessness and in struggling to stick with what you know is correct for you, even in the face of opposition from others. This gate points at the splenic center, which is about health and well being. So, if you're not using this energy correctly, it could result in health issues. Patience is needed with this activation, though, as the awareness of what to fight for is in its electromagnetic gate 28, the gate of the game player and risk taker in the splenic center. Remember, the splenic center is an awareness center. So in the moment, that awareness can come through of, yes, this is what I want to fight for in life. This is on my purpose path. The 38 on its own can speculate on what to fight for, but the true knowing isn't there. So be patient. If you don't have the 28 in your own design, we're going to have a little glimpse of it in the planetary transits, the channels that are being created. And as you pass through other people's auras, there'll be someone that has the 28. As a result, one of the things that can happen here, because this energy can only speculate on what to fight for, is it can bring this stubborn and generally oppositional nature without discerning what to really fight for. So you say something and the other just says the opposite, right? They're going to fight you every step of the way. Or with this transit in play, maybe it's you that's fighting the other every step of the way. The melancholy that this trait can drop into is that of not knowing what to fight for. Remember, with the melancholy of these individual traits, it's a natural biochemistry. There's nothing wrong when people try to make up things about why they're dropping into melancholy. It can actually drive it even deeper and as deep as going into depression. So there is nothing to make up here. If you pulse into it, just do your best to see the beauty in it. There's been beautiful art and poetry and stories that have come out of periods of melancholy. Channel it as creatively as you can. These are very acoustic gates, so listening to music that you're in the mood for could be helpful to move through it as well. And it will pulse out as fast as it pulses in. You just have no control over when those pulses come through. When we look at these two traits together, it's going to bring tension, as I mentioned before. And this means it can be a really good time to go within and reflect on What might fuel your spirit and your purpose? Collectively, we could have a lot of emotional upset that's being provoked by collective decisions or people fighting for what they feel very passionate about. On the other hand, there could be people fighting for something that's really not of value. At the personal level, really be checking in with your own strategy and authority. If you're feeling provoked or you find yourself being stubborn about something, to make sure that it really is correct and aligned for you. I want to mention too that gates 38 and 39 are two of the three traits in the body graph that we call gates of quote unquote deafness, where we tend to want to listen to ourselves and not to others, which means there could also be a lot of miscommunications over this cycle, people not really listening to each other. So bring some compassion to that, understand what's going on there. Okay, let's move into our channels now. Remember that when the transit field creates a channel, anyone who doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving the activation of the related traits and qualities. So it has a worldwide impact. Now, this cycle, it's going to be minor. We do have 3 channels being created, but they're by the transit of the moon. And the moon only stays activating a gate or a trait for about 10 to 11 hours, give or take. So they're just little tasters. Okay, the first one comes in on July 4th at 7:37 a.m. going until 7:01 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's coming in July 4th at 1:37 p.m. going until 1:01 a.m. on July 5th. The moon is moving into that electromagnetic gate 28, the trait of the game player, the risk taker in the splenic center. This is knowing, getting a pulse of knowing of what risks to take in life to find purpose beyond survival. It's connecting with the Earth's position, that gate 38 in the root center, the trait of the fighter. Together, they create the channel of struggle, a design of stubbornness. Now, stubbornness isn't always a bad thing, right? It brings this stick-to-itness and the ability to struggle through what you know is correct for you, no matter what anybody else thinks. Now, without really being connected into the channel, sometimes it can just pick a fight. But ultimately, it's about the struggle through times of not finding purpose in life to persist in finding it, waiting for that pulse of knowing to come through. Our next channel activation comes in on July 5th at 6:25 a.m., going until 5:47 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in July 5th at 12:25 p.m., going until 11:47 p.m. We have the moon moving into gate 1, the trait of the creative in the G center. That's the center that's associated with our love, direction, and identity in life. That's connecting with its electromagnetic gate 8, the trait of contribution in the throat center. Together, they create the channel of inspiration, a design of a creative role model. Also, part of the individual circuitry. All 3 moon channels we have are part of the individual circuitry this cycle. So wanting to bring through something new, something mutated. If you have this channel in your design, part of your essence is to be a living example of uniqueness. This channel operates in a pulse of creative inspiration that you have no control over. It's something new. The pulse comes through when the pulse comes through. This is not the continuous improvement and refinement processes that we see in the tribal and collective circuitry. It really wants to bring through something new and mutative. It's rooted in the knowing that true creative inspiration is independent of will. You can't just will creative inspiration on demand. It comes when it comes. Yet we have whole industries called marketing, right? Around like trying to force creativity to come on demand. It brings the opportunity to share your uniqueness out into the world. Individuals just be themselves in their own unique way and don't really care if others follow them or not. The caution here is that there can be a fear of rejection of one's unique contribution and uniqueness. So this holding back Or with that pressure going up to the throat center, there can be this blurting out of one's creative expression when it hasn't been invited. In that case, it's likely going to be expressed to the wrong people at the wrong time and won't really get the recognition. Our last channel comes in on July 6th at 4:22 p.m., going out on July 7th at 3:33 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in July 6th at 10:22 p.m., going out on July 7th at 9:33 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate 34, the trait of power in the sacral center. The sacral center is a motor that generates life force energy. It's connected with our vitality and our sexuality. It's connecting with its one of its electromagnetics out of the three, gate 20. This is Venus position in the throat center. Together, they create the channel of charisma, a design where thoughts must become deeds. This individual channel brings the power to take action and be busy. Ideally, being self-absorbed in something that you love. When you see someone who's really absorbed in what they love, it can be very charismatic. It can really draw you in. However, it's gate 57 in the splenic center, the trait of intuitive clarity, this acoustic knowing in the now that gives awareness to this channel. So if gate 57 is not active in the transit field, and it's not this cycle, and if you don't have it in your own design, you could end up being very busy for the sake of being busy and just burning energy on things that are not of value to you. This is also a channel that supports you in using your power to individuate, to be your individual self, and surviving in the world as an individual. A reminder that individual gates and channels, once again, can move into melancholy. And here it's about not being able to use one's power in the now, or not being able to be here in the now. That brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the nodes of the moon and the outer planets. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. So your not self mind could start to think that they're part of you, even when it's not something you have in your design. And then it's rather confusing when that planet finally leaves that gate and that activation is gone. And the not self mind's going, whoa, where did that go? All right, we have the nodes of the moon sitting in gates 22 and 47, and they are in line 5. Gate 22 is the individual trait of grace or disgrace, and openness or closeness. In line 5, it's called directness, which has a developmental theme that says the disregard of form when required. Now, this is part of the only social channel in the individual circuitry that wants to mutate how we relate to one another. The exaltation for this line says the power inherent in higher principles to successfully transgress behavioral codes, the possibility through emotional awareness to behave individualistically in social interaction. This is really the full expression of this trait, to bring through a mutation to social interaction by being one's unique self and having that taken up in a positive way. The detriment says a tendency to create embarrassing situations, and though invariably successful, the often resulting reputation for crudity and impudence. The possibility that individual behavior and social interaction will generate negative projections from others. So here it's, yes, bringing something new to the behavioral norms in social interaction, but it's being judged negatively. We can expect to see these graceful and disgraceful expressions of this trait playing out in the world in a greater way. Gate 22 can also bring attentive listening to others or not. The polarity can always be there. Gate 47, the collective abstract trait of realization and oppression is in the ajna center, the south node of the moon. It's sitting in line 5 called the saint. This is a special line because there's only an exaltation and no detriment. The exaltation says the gift in times of oppression to maintain without hypocrisy a harmonic relationship with one's oppressors, while providing aid and succor, which means assistance, to the oppressed. Realization at its most exalted. Acceptance of the weight of the abstract process and the grace that naturally follows. No polarity. So here we have this environment where there's an understanding that life can be confusing. It's hard to make sense of things. It can be oppressive trying to make sense of things. But we can help those who are confused and unable to find sense in what's going on around them and who can't see a way out. We can help them to move through to the other side. Jupiter is in gate 52, the logical trait of inaction in the root center, which is where we had the sun's position in the last cycle. It's moved into line 2 just before the start of this cycle, and it's going to move into line 3 at 8:33 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time on July 4th. Happy 4th of July to those in the States. July 1st is Canada Day. Happy Canada Day to those in Canada. I don't know the other ones around the world that might be going on, but you can always let me know in the comments. Line 2 is called concern, and its exaltation says the pause that is initiated to benefit others, the pressure to restrain energy for the benefit of others. The detriment says a selfish and abrupt pause that may endanger others unnecessarily. The pressure to selfishly restrain energy at the expense of others. Now, the second line is a line of projection. It projects out this frequency of inaction. In the exaltation, it's going to be interpreted as, oh, they're concentrating on something that will help us. Remember, it's collective. And in the detriment, it's going to be interpreted as, oh, they're just staying still and concentrating for themselves and being selfish and not doing anything to help us. On July 4th in the evening, when this moves into line 3, that line's called controls. It has a developmental theme that says external enforcement of inaction. Its exaltation says the ability by its very nature to understand restraint with the potential and acceptance to use the period to redefine strategies. The energy for acceptance in inaction. The detriment says a deep dissatisfaction with controls that disturbs tranquility, leads to emotional withdrawal, and affects vision. The pressure of restraint disturbs tranquility. So third lines are, it's a trial and error line. Third lines are always bumping into things and then have to go through the trial and error process. So here, this is being told by someone. It's an external force coming in to be still and concentrate on something. Right? Like a parent telling a child, go practice the piano, or a situation that forces sitting still and concentrating. In the exaltation, there's an acceptance, and it gives you the energy to work through the practice and perhaps in the end, finding that you enjoy it. In the detriment, the practice interrupted an existing stillness within. And then you can come to resent it and maybe really hate any sense of being controlled or being told what to do. Jupiter, remember, Jupiter brings expansion to these qualities. And we do tend to see the detriments playing out in the collective. So as you look out into the world, this could bring with that line 2 of people concentrating on things that don't help others. And with line 3, pushback against any external forces that are trying to control people. Right? They're trying to control me. I'm not going to allow that. Combine that with our Sun Earth positions, provocation, and the fighter, right? So yeah, could be some agitation there. Tension, as I mentioned. Personally, these frequencies can help you to sit still and concentrate. But if you don't have the electromagnetic gate 9, there could be a bit of a restlessness that you don't know what to focus on. Saturn and Neptune continue to sit in gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love. or not. The polarity can be there. Neptune's in line 5 called recuperation. This has a developmental theme that says when innocence is sapped of its vitality, healing is the first priority. So when you stay in your innocence, in the now, seeing the world through eyes of wonder, being comfortable in the unknown, other people want that. And that pull on you can sap your vitality. This trait brings the power of the spirit to heal and be healed. And the way it does that is withdrawing to recuperate. So perhaps Neptune will support dissolving what's in the way of healing your spirit, or it could veil it. The detriment is hypochondria and the need to be healed by others. This is about being yourself. And when you're not, it can bring illness. Well, a lot of people don't rest. They don't take that time to recuperate until they get sick. Really looking after yourself, being yourself. Well, this line is present, is going to be helpful. Be good to your immune system. Saturn's in line 4, a line that's called survival. And it says the nature of innocence can be maintained regardless of circumstances, the spiritual warrior. So perhaps Saturn will limit the circumstances. Saturn brings restrictions, limitations, constraints, consequences. So it might limit the circumstances under which you can maintain innocence and being yourself. Perhaps it will bring greater discipline to this. So it could be a tricky pair with Saturn in line 4 and Neptune in line 5, in which if you're not being disciplined and looking after your immune system, Saturn could bring the consequences of illness. Uranus, with its unusualness, sitting in gate 8, the trait of individual contribution. We saw that in one of our channels, sitting in the throat center. Line 6 is called communion. It has a developmental theme that says the certainty which grows out of harmony. Its exaltation says the gift of knowing when to contribute creatively, while the detriment says uncertainty in timing and regret despite circumstances. Now, 6 lines generally are not going to contribute unless they can see that it will really make a difference, that it can be mutative in this case because it's individual. And even though it's individual, there's an attunement to the collective that needs to be there to understand the pattern and timing of things. You can be present to that and know when to creatively contribute, or if you don't pay attention to the collective, to the patterns, you're not going to have that timing. Pluto's sitting in gate 41, the trait of contraction and decrease in the abstract experiential circuitry. It's the gate of daydreaming and fantasizing about the next experience you want to have, and it's the pressure to start a new experience. Just a reminder that in the end, it has to be practical or of value in some way. Overall, we've got very strong themes of individuality this cycle. We also have quite a bit of projection in the field through the 2nd and 5th lines in the long-term transit. So managing expectations will also be a theme this cycle, especially when the Sun-Earth positions also transit through lines 2 and lines 5. Remember that for any of these traits, if you don't have them in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you, you can learn from it, but whether there's anything for you to actually do from it is according to your own strategy and authority. So don't let it puppet you. Don't let it run you. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the black and the red about, the different geometric shapes and so on, you can grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human-design. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would be very grateful if you could give this episode a like and consider subscribing. All right. This is a cycle where I recommend really being patient with others around you, as again, gates 38 and 39 are two of the three gates of so called deafness, where we may not listen to each other as well. Also, try to be as clear as you can with any parameters, any expectations, and be aware of the more provoking and oppositional nature that this cycle will bring, the natural tension that it can bring. Just because the tension's there in the field doesn't mean that you have to carry it within you. Okay. Also, a great time to reflect on what lights up your spirit and maybe where you could move forward on your purpose path. Okay. Have a great cycle. Be kind to one another, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.